Yeah, thank you very much for being here. This is my first Digital Dragons, and I really love the venue, all the people that I spoke to, and yeah, of course, Polish hospitality, which has brought me 1 or 2 drinks over the last couple of days. And yeah, in case you're wondering, we're also here exhibiting with our HR booth. So please stop by and have a check if you're interested in finding a job in Germany. Today, I will be talking about my job and what happened at Innogames over the last 2 years, mainly our transition from being a browser-only company to doing browser-based cross-platform games for mobile, and also for the future doing mobile-only games. And what that meant for us for the PR department, because I've been the responsible PR manager for all of our products at Innogames for the past 4 years, have overseen the PR side of launches for some of our biggest games, including Forge of Empires and successor to the, especially in Poland, very prominent game Plemiona, which is called Tribal Wars 2. Tribal Wars being the original English name of Plemiona, which some of you might have at some point played and enjoyed. So yeah, Innogames founded as a hobby project in 2003, very interesting to know. And then at some point the game Tribal Wars or Plemiona, due to its very aggressive PvP strategy playstyle, which wasn't very common back then, became a global and especially in Europe also very largely a Polish phenomenon. The Polish players are our biggest single market player group. So yeah, especially important for us to also be here to keep in contact with our Polish community, which is huge, and yeah, to tell them a little bit about what we're doing. So yeah, a product PR manager, that's a position that many companies that are doing similar products to the one that we are doing are not even having. So first of all, I will start by explaining to you why I think that product PR is very, very valid for free-to-play companies, regardless whether they're doing mobile or browser. So I will be explaining, good that my boss is here, I will be explaining why my job is important and why I should keep it. And then afterwards I will explain a little bit about how to do successful free-to-play PR for mobile and browser. So might be helpful for some of you, regardless whether you're indie developers or startup companies or companies our size. So some tips on how to do it. And then I will explain to you what we encountered when we made the transition from browser only to browser and mobile cross-platform games, and what kind of challenges we faced on the PR side of things. One of our PR agents, I won't name any names, once said that AAA PR is quite easy. Of course, that's like simplification. Doing public relations for a big time AAA game like, I don't know, The Witcher, is a lot of work and very hard to do. But what that person meant by that is that when you're doing PR for a AAA game, then you're essentially selling to a buyer's market. Everybody wants to hear about your game. You just have to give them the information they want. My situation is a little different because aside from very specialist media sites or magazines, first of all, not that many journalists and games journalists want to hear about browser-based or mobile-based free-to-play games. They're more interested in like the big games, the PlayStation games or the big online projects. So why should one actually do public relations for free-to-play games that are a little more niche and that take a little more suggestion and like a little more work on the side of the PR manager? First reason is that as marketing for all online games becomes more and more important and therefore also more and more expensive, PR is way more cost efficient than marketing. You can see that here. Very nice example. We have one homepage, posted one of our articles that was free, basically, aside from the work that I put in. And then you have the smaller window up there where there's like an ad, which actually cost our company money. What you can directly see is that the article that I that was created because I sent the journalist some information is bigger, it's more prominently placed, it's for free, and the reader will trust the author more than some random ad that you can see on the site. And as marketing gets more and more expensive for mobile and for browser games, we're saving a lot of money by doing exactly this, trying to reach home pages that could bring us some users and try to be a little more cost efficient. One other reason is that when you're doing product PR, when you're going to trade shows like we're doing here, when you're talking about your games to journalists, is that you're also always doing product PR, corporate PR, sorry. So meaning that I'm talking to a journalist, I'm presenting my latest game, I'm showing that journalist what is really cool about the game and what I like about it and why he, she should write about it. I'm also always promoting my company name. You can see that here. That's our Gamescom booth. So co-branded, people get to know our biggest gaming brands, get to know what kinds of games we're doing, but they also keep remembering the name Innogames. They will think about it when they talk about the games. They will think about it if they meet somebody that might be interesting to us. So promoting your company as a whole is always a part of product PR. Doesn't work the other way around. Also, free-to-play, especially for browser and mobile, needs people that talk about it, that know what it entails, simply because there are so many misconceptions out there about free-to-play being evil, being a rip-off, being a nicer word for pay-to-win. And in order to convince those people, not just mainstream media that might be less informed, but also games media, which in very many cases are heavily opposed of the idea, because they might have encountered a very negative example at some point, which there are. But those people need to be able to talk to somebody from free-to-play games companies that gives them a little insight, that gives them their perspective on things. Really, really important. We need those people. And one of the most important reasons is no names for the games here, but most of you will immediately recognize them, at least two out of three, I would say. Brands are already very, very big in the mobile and in the browser space. In order to compete with brands, you need to obtain them yourself, which costs a lot of money. You have to create them, which costs a lot of money too. You have to push a brand into the market through marketing. Or if you don't have the money, you don't have any other choice than to try it with PR. And the ideal case would be to do a little bit of both, being able to support your brand, to build your brand throughout marketing, but also being supported by PR with that. PR is the cheapest way to compete with big brands. There's no option, no way of brand building that is cheaper and therefore more cost efficient than doing public relations for your game, regardless whether they're on the browser or on mobile. All right, I hope you're all convinced that we all should be doing PR for free-to-play games. And now I'm trying to tell you a little bit about how. If you're already doing free-to-play or if you're already doing games PR in general, you might already know some of those things that I'm going to mention consciously or subconsciously, but especially if you're doing your first games, if you're an indie developer that wants to just take the first steps in doing public relations or generate some interest in your game, this might actually be very, very helpful for you. The first one, at the beginning, you should always try to find out what are you aiming at when you're doing public relations. Identify what, sorry, no, you know the second already. Identify what would entail successful PR for your game and how you can measure it. There can be there are many ways to measure how successful your PR is. You could just look at the raw numbers, how many articles have I generated, online or print. You could look at market shares. You're saying, hey, I want to be more invested in Poland. I want to create more articles on Polish websites. Then you're looking at how big your share of articles is in Poland. You could also just say, hey, I want to be able to have a nice flashy trailer for all of the games that I'm doing. And I want to have that properly produced and properly published. And this is the task of the PR guy, or you're saying, hey, I want to visit at least one trade show in most of our important countries. And yeah, at Innogames we're doing a lot of those like combined, because we are by now being very, very specific about how successful PR looks like for us in different parts of, in different sections of public relations. Second one, what I'm doing here right now, what I did for the past 2 days, what my colleagues did here, interact with people. That can mean get out there, get a drink together, go to after parties, go to game jams, indie pitches, whatever chance you have. Also means walking around the trade show all day, trying to book appointments with journalists. But if you don't have the budget for that, if you're an indie developer at a local where like no trade show is around and you would have to travel there and everything, then the most important, the biggest tool for you is social media. Just very, very important to keep in mind. You should be interacting with people. They shouldn't be like spamming your Facebook page with comments or questions. If you have an account, if you have a page, if you have a blog, you should always try to create content for it and also answer questions if people are reaching out to you. So interaction is very, very important. Trust your experts. You're surrounded, as a PR manager, you're surrounded by people that are experts in certain areas. That can be within your company or the people that you're encountering that are working for you, that are selling you services. None of them are experts in PR, but they are experts in other departments. That means they can't explain to you how a successful PR campaign for a certain game would work. They probably won't even know which features might be especially interesting to journalists if they don't have any experience. But they can, if they're working on a game, they can talk to you about what they think is very special about the game and why that is. It is your job to gather all that information, to take it and make a proper PR strategy out of it, find unique selling points for your game, but it's also your job to listen to them, to get in contact with everybody who is working on your game, to talk with them about what makes that game so special, or also, in case of external partners, to talk with them about their specific point of view on certain things that they know better than you, including markets, countries, regions, technical tools, you name it. Very, very important, and that doesn't go for big companies with marketing departments like ours, but for everybody. Games are now global. That means if you're publishing a game, in most cases, you're publishing it globally, at least when you're supporting it in English language. So think as a global company, as a global developer, and then try and act local, which is what we are basically doing by releasing our games in many, many languages, and then we're trying to have a local impact by having local partners. For us in the PR, we're working with 3 agencies in total for our core markets, Clever Communications in the US, Cosmo Cover in France, and since last year also with Cool Things in Poland. So this is where we try to make a local impact by having people that support us, that try to introduce us to journalists, that tell us, hey, you should go to Digital Dragons, it's really cool, please be here. We'll make some interviews and you might meet some nice people. So think global, act local, really, really important. And the last one sounds like a no-brainer, but in most cases it isn't. As a PR person, you're not allowed to lie, never. And as gamers, you all have heard some kinds of lies at some point or another about the games that you liked or the games that you were interested in, and then at some point you heard, okay, this and this statement was bullshit, basically. And it influences your opinion on the company, on the game, and it has never a positive impact because you never know if you get away with a lie. So don't do it, because the moment you lose your reputation, games media will not work with you the way that you would like to. Short example. This is an article, already strong headline, Innogames cans rising general development. So we had to shut down a game. That's not a good thing, never is. But I was very happy about this article. Not because they were writing about it, but because they were referring to my press release about it. Meaning that the journalist was trusting me, was trusting the things that we said about how the development of Rising Generals led to it being shut down. They took over the core messages of what we said in the press release. And I mean, that can happen to every company. Sometimes you have to shut down a game. And it's sad for everyone who is involved. But for us, it was way more important to say, hey, we had reasons to shut it down. The game in closed beta showed the players agreed with us that it isn't as promising as some of our other games, and we would have to put lots of energy and effort into it. And we were able to find new projects within the company for everyone involved. So the shutdown of the game, as sad as it is, didn't mean that somebody had to lose their jobs. And that was a really important message. So we could say, hey, we're shutting down a game, but we have reasons for it. It doesn't mean that Innogames is going broke now. It doesn't mean that people had to lose their jobs. It was all because the connection that we had to a specific kind of journalists, to that person as well, was really, really good. And that person trusted us to not bullshit them. So keep that in mind. Don't lie. Let's go to Innogames. We had some very turbulent years where we basically turned the entire company upside down. We have been a browser-only company for about 9 years with the launch of Tribal Wars or Plemiona at some point. And then we decided, when mobile got bigger, okay, we have to bring our biggest brands to mobile as cross-platform apps, meaning that you have one login, one sign-in. You can just continue playing your account on iOS and browser. And at the same time, we were developing cross-platform games that were supporting cross-platform and were supposed to launch on all 3 platforms, browser, iOS, and Android, at the same time with, for example, Tribal Wars 2. There are some very good reasons here, and maybe you already heard some of the talks at Digital Dragons about the importance of the mobile market and also about how it's already, how it feels like it's already peaking for some people. But back then, when we started the development, it was really a no-brainer for us. Going mobile means that you have an entirely new group of people being introduced to your product, to your game. It also means that the players that you have in browser have another way of playing, of enjoying your game. And that automatically increases the chance that a player stays in your game for a longer time, gets more invested in it. If I have the chance to also check my tribe and Plemiona on my way to work on my phone, then I might be more invested into the game. So we decided to, as the app stores were already quite big on Android and on iOS, we decided to go for native apps that had full cross-platform support and, of course, continue supporting the browser and give players a chance to play on all types of mobile devices, tablets, phones, and so on, as long as they were iOS and Android, which were the platforms that we focused for then and which are we focusing on still. So we had Forge of Empires, which was one of our biggest brands for browser already, which we were bringing to mobile, which is already out now on iOS and Android. And then we had 2 entirely new games developed, Tribal Wars 2, the successor to Plemiona, which was supposed to be coming out on iOS and Android at the same time. And we had an entirely new brand, Rising Generals, which was even more mobile-focused, more fast-paced, cool 3D graphics, and same thing here, different development bases. We developed it in Adobe Air, but also thought of as a cross-platform game. So, of course, the goals for the games were clear. We wanted to get new users. We wanted to keep our old users. For PR, the biggest goals were to say, hey, cross-platform is a cool thing. We're investing a lot of time and development resources into it. This is one of the USPs of our games because not that many companies were doing it at that time and are doing it. And we also wanted to give media that is talking with us about it the feeling, hey, this is a capable app developer. They might have done only browser in the past, but now they have the resources, now they have the knowledge to do that, and actually technologically quite advanced by trying out cross-platform, which is still not very common in most popular games. So, because it's very complicated to work with. For Tribal Wars 2, we also had the very unique situation that it was a successor to one of our oldest and arguably one of our most successful games. So we decided from the PR side to get into contact with the Tribal Wars community, with the Plemiona community very, very early on. And we tried to take away their fears of Tribal Wars 2 replacing the old game, or that the old game wouldn't receive any more love or development time and new features from us, which isn't the case. So we got the players in very early. We invited some hardcore players to do a hands-on with us, also give us the feedback about how they think the new thing is balanced, what they like about the old game, which they would like to see in the new game, and so on. And for Rising Generals, we had a different strategy PR-wise. We especially wanted to put the technological aspects, the cool 3D graphics in the focus. We wanted to show cross-platform to people as well. This is why we also did hands-on and demos. And we had Bruce Shelley, game designer for Age of Empires and for Civilization, working on the game, helping the team to improve the gameplay. And of course, we used that fact PR-wise to say, hey, we're having a very, very senior, a game design legend working on our games. And we took him to trade shows with us and did interviews and things. And we very quickly realized that when you're doing mobile PR, lots of things crucially change, right from the beginning. Starting with the fact that you don't have a worldwide release anymore. You can't just say, hey, go to Forge of Empires /international.com or something and play the game wherever you are, as long as you can speak English. No, you have local releases on the specific country markets due to the structure of the iOS App Store and Google Play on Android. That also means that you don't have a beta. You can't do closed betas with keys on any of those platforms. There is a way to get a limited number of players in, but it's very complicated, and it can't be compared to just giving out beta keys on gaming pages. That also means that key giveaways, one of the very major tools for us to gain interest, to get people in very early, and also to get cool articles on the pages that are taking part in it, they don't exist anymore. And we realized that all those things combined resulted in, for mobile games very typical, in a very short hype phase. So we couldn't try to get people to be excited about the games 6 months in advance. We tried to work against that a little bit by organizing a media day, so working around the very complicated way of giving out test access. We just invited all of the journalists to our new offices, so we had a cool reason to show off our new office, which is very, very nice, and also then give them presentations on the game and give them a chance to play the games. We, even earlier than that, with the start of the mobile versions of Grappolis, one of our other very successful PvP games, started building up a network of mobile journalists, because that takes a lot of time. And we tried to meet them at trade shows. We tried to get in contact with them and told them, hey, we're a browser developer right now, but we will be doing lots of stuff on mobile that is very cool. So let's stay in touch, and we will show you something very soon. And there was also the time where we worked with more PR agencies to have a bigger impact on local markets, to be more visible, for example, in Poland with working with cool things. But regardless of lots of our efforts, only one of those two games made it. And as mentioned earlier, we had to shut down Rising Generals at some point. We decided that development time and the effort we would have to spend to fix some things wouldn't be worth it. And of course, the game team thought a lot about what they could have done better, and they took that into their next projects, and the same we did with our PR strategy. And yeah, I will get to that shortly. But Tribal Wars 2 still very successfully running, coming out on iOS soon. And we also finished the cross-platform project Forge of Empires, which is now playable on iOS and Android, and which has been very, very successful, especially in Poland as well, where it immediately reached top 10 overall, not game downloads, right after launch. and it's still running very well. And what we're especially happy about is that lots of players that already played Forge of Empires on the browser are adopting mobile devices as their as their additional way of playing the game. So 2 out of 3 games made it, were quite successful, but still we want to see how we could have done better, or what we are learning for the future and what you can take away from it when you're doing a mobile game, or when you're as a browser games company or a browser developer, or somebody who developed for Steam until now, are thinking about going to mobile. And the first lesson is that if you have a brand, it's very, very valuable to have it, especially in the beginning, because you have an existing player base. You have people that are already excited, either about your previous game, like Tribal Wars, or about a brand that is not related to your game. For example, if you're doing a game license for Lord of the Rings or something. This is a very, very valuable asset to have for mobile development, simply because the space that you have, the space that you will get for visibility is very, very limited. So this definitely gives you an edge at the beginning, and was something that Tribal Wars 2 had, but Rising Generals didn't, simply because it was a new IP. The other one is that you shouldn't be announcing too early. For our browser-based games, we always had the goal to be announcing about 6 months before the game started. And this doesn't work for mobile. For Rising Generals, it was especially crucial simply because we were working with a new technology, with Adobe Air, and that at some point meant that the game had to be delayed. So we had already announced quite early for a mobile game, and then there were some delays coming. And in the end, the game was hanging in the air. There was nothing to talk about except for, okay, it's coming soon. That was one of the reasons, at least from the PR side, that we couldn't create more interest by the time the game would have come out. Also, if you're doing mobile, it's really hard to get mobile media in the amounts of you would be getting games media in general, general interest media, or specialized online games media, simply because there's not that many mobile specialized media out there yet. And there's even less if you take away the ones that expect you to pay for coverage, for visibility. So lots of pages that are not really media offerings, but more like aggregators. And of course, as a PR person, they might still be interesting. They might still be interesting for you to pass on to your marketing manager, because they might make a deal with them. But you want to create free content, as said, in order to be cost efficient. What we also realized, and that goes for mobile games as well, but of course not only for mobile games, is that it's really crucial to have lots of video content. For us, it even goes that far that we are having a monthly video show called Innogames Tv, which has been very, very positively adopted by the players, which are expecting it every month, where we're talking about not just our games, but also what's happening around the office, cool events, a little bit of a behind the scenes, like how is a feature being done or something like that. But also very, very important when you're doing product PR, when you want to place your game, have as many videos as you can. If you're an indie developer, you can start with very, very simple tools, just properly recorded gameplay material, and a voiceover might already be a start. And then, of course, in the case of our games, we start with properly produced gameplay trailer. Then we have a series of videos introducing certain features, and then at some point 3D animated videos, which we also use as TV spots. So we're trying to really cover a lot of ground with creating as many videos as possible, and it really gets users closer to you. Those 3 guys again. So keep in mind that when you're developing for mobile, that the competition is insanely fierce, and there are already very, very big brands out there. You don't have to make as much money as them. You don't have to be as successful as them. They are, in many ways, the gold standard for what can be achieved on mobile. But of course, there are lots of smaller companies that can also either make money or at least start up developing games and being moderately successful. Just keep in mind, those guys don't get away, and there are lots more of bigger companies coming out and trying to conquer that market. So even though you might not be directly competing with them, they are there and will take up the same space and the same visibility as you. Whether you want it or not, you're competing with those kinds of brands, which of course in most cases your company or your indie studio might not be able to do in terms of money. So the person responsible for PR always should keep an eye out for opportunities to stand out from the crowd, to create a brand or at least a company or product identity for yourself. All right, just one quick outlook, which is not about our about what we learned from PR, but about what's happening at Innogames. Since I'm still a representative of that company. So what we are recently did is opening up a second development studio in Düsseldorf. So we are now developing with close to 400 people in Hamburg and Düsseldorf, Germany. We will be still be doing browser-only games, cross-platform games, and which will be very important for us in 2016, mobile-only games. Two of them being developed with, one of them being developed with Unity, one with the Unreal Engine. So if you're Unity or Unreal developers, you should also come by our booth. Because, yeah, we're still hiring. We grew quite a lot from the 3 nerdy guys that started out the company, which are still standing in the middle there. Now we're a very, very big company, and we are planning to still grow. So if you're mobile, front-end, C++, or whatever developers, so we're looking for lots of different types of developers. We also have marketing positions open, community management, producing. Just come by our booth or check out innogames.com and see if there's something that might be fitting for you. And yeah, of course, if you have any questions, I would love to hear them.
Yep, the mic is here, so
thanks.
If you have a question, comment, raise your hand. This is the moment. Probably the invitation to the booth was so successful that people won't leave their questions to the direct talks.
You can also ask at the booth.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.